Well, we got the Manchurian Man, Obama, in office for another 4 years. So the hell with it. Let's go for a ride. Nothing you can do about it, right? And actually, if I was Romney was elected, I would be disappointed there too. So, you know, I don't have the herd mentality. Interesting too that Ron Paul was correct that he really couldn't run on a third party. It wouldn't have. Well, he couldn't have won possibly because of the herd mentality by most people. He would have had to have been on a Republican ticket. So what the hell can he do? Just endorse whoever's there, right, and go for that. And so can't fault him for that reason. Um, but anyway, I just want to get on with a couple things here because something interesting too about Obama that they're comparing him to Woodrow Wilson. Now, you look at the years, 2013, and Woodrow Wilson was in office inaugurated in 1913. There is a pretty good comparison because Woodrow Wilson and Obama basically came out of nowhere. None of them really have a long political career. Obama was a senator. Woodrow Wilson was a governor of New Jersey, not even for the full term. Woodrow Wilson actually came from the Princeton University. He was the head president of it, I think. And, he's an intelligent person, but he was being used. He was being used. That's sometimes the point of intelligence, too. I mean, you can be very smart in some ways, but if you got to have a little bit of street smarts, too, or actually a lot of street smarts. In the case of Soros, he's got a lot of street smarts. He seems to be winning with this guy because this is his boy. But, yeah, Soros is also part of another apparatus that's above him, of course. But it's interesting when they're making these comparisons between Woodrow Wilson and Obama. I keep thinking to myself, under Woodrow Wilson, we had the Federal Reserve enacted on Christmas Eve. Remember, just by when hardly everybody was in a recess, it got passed. Then we had the 16th Amendment to the Constitution, the IRS, come about, even though it wasn't really ratified, I guess, but it's still enforced. So you got to pay your taxes. And World War I came about. Now, I don't think there's going to be World War III coming about during Obama, but, probably going to have the invasion of Iran one way or the other, sanctions or no sanctions. But who the hell knows? But, the thing is, with this scenario, it makes me wonder about what's even to happen regarding the Federal Reserve. There might be some changes coming about or whatever. But, I don't think they're going to be good changes because, the disappointment that Soros had in Obama was that he didn't cause more centralized control by the banks. That's why he's disappointed in him. It's like he didn't move fast enough to the evil way. So, I don't know. They're cold-blooded jackasses on the top. I mean, you think Obama's bad. The guy he's working for is even worse, or the guys that own him. But these are both Manchurian candidates. It's kind of interesting comparison because they both came out of nowhere. They both were pretty much owned lock, stock, and barrel from head to toe. And, in the case of Woodrow Wilson, we talk about George Soros, but we had Bernard Baruch, right? Very influential. Now, this is politically incorrect commentary here, but if look up Bernard Baruch, he's been very powerful behind a lot of presidents for a long time, and he pretty much owned this guy. Actually, in the case of Woodrow Wilson, during the end of his second term, he was so ill, computer conspiracies put it out there that he was poisoned, right? I mean, it was his wife. That's conspiracies now. I'm not saying it's a fact, but it's conspiracies. But he was very ill. But his wife was actually running the White House. This guy was like totally out of it. Makes me kind of wondering what's going to happen with Obama. And actually, Marc Faber has some comments on that. So I'm going to get onto that too pretty soon. But first, the markets. The markets are going up slightly, very slightly. But it's kind of interesting that the big crash isn't in here just yet. But, I don't think the big crash is not going to occur. I don't think it's going to occur in gold. I don't even think it's going to occur in the other precious metals as much as the markets. Even these industrial, like the case of palladium, I just want to say real quick, a lot of people hate palladium, but I'm going to be brief here. But, we had a record amount of supply available in 2011, 8.5 million ounces, right? That was including all the recycled stuff. And, like 90% of this metal is used up in industrial metal. So as in industry, it's 60% for catalyst and electronic, jewelry, and all this other garbage. Only a few percent of the 8.5 million ounces is available for investment. This year you might have up to a record amount of 9 million ounces available. So I actually will think that this metal is going to have some investment going into it. So it's going to be bullish for this metal, despite what some people are telling me otherwise. But we'll see. We'll see. Anyway. But as far as the fiscal cliff, also want to point out that the fiscal cliff is going to be ignored largely. Even though it's mandated by law, they have to do this. I kind of figured this garbage. It's almost like that's one thing. Like you have to have a little common sense. It's like when the hell did just look back in history? When did Congress ever stick with a budget? Never. They talk about sticking with a budget, but they don't. They don't. So it's going to be ignored. But what does that mean? Just like I was saying, Moody's will come about and probably downgrade the U.S. debt. S&P might downgrade it further. I don't know. But even if they don't downgrade it, the U.S., any investors in the world are going to realize they're going to start going into hard assets. I mean, you can't just dump dollars into yen, Japanese yen, or Chinese yuan, or the Swiss franc. You just can't do that because there's too many dollars out there. I mean, that gives it like the dollar's not going to just jump into other currencies too easily. There's just too many dollars. But it can start jumping into other hard assets. And it's not going to just jump into gold and silver, but it's going to be partly jumping into gold and silver, so it's going to be bullish for the metal. It could be jumping into other assets too, any other hard assets. But it could be jumping into palladium and platinum too. There could be a lot more investment demand in there that drives those things up. So, that's something else. Now, Marc Faber had an interview on Bloomberg very recently, like in the last couple of days, or just yesterday, whatever it was. It was like right after the election, so very recent interview, and today is 2 days after the election, November 8th, Thursday, 2012. He goes, they asked him, this is like his power, I just wrote down what he was saying, but I guess this thing occurred yesterday. They asked him, Marc Faber goes, what should investors do? He goes, in other words, he thought the markets, he was joking around. He says he thought the markets in the S&P should have corrected by 30-50% or something. I forgot exactly what he said. He says it should have been very bad for the markets. So, I don't know. But he goes on to say the investors, they should buy themselves a machine gun. He goes, I need to buy a tank. And he goes, joking aside, he's kidding around. We have manipulated markets. So he recognizes, and he said this so many times, we have manipulated markets. Whenever you manipulate markets, you will get unintended consequences. And that's true. Very true. You'll have bubbles in different areas unexpectedly. But the bubble might curve in silver again. We might have another temporary shoot up. Who the hell knows? But like I said, don't fear that the dollar's going to go to oblivion in 2013. It's got more life than that. I would say, I always compared this to the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. Even looking back in history, the historians say they can't even figure out what year it was that the fall actually occurred because it was a series of events, ups and down cycles. And, ups and down cycles, Fibonacci, right? The laws of nature, maybe that's a good way to see what's going to happen with market timing. But, don't be afraid to sell a little bit of silver if you get some crazy gains, like we get more than a double or some garbage. The fiat dollar's not going to go away completely. The silver crowd will tell you it will, maybe. Some of them, I don't know. They over-exaggerate things a lot. But anyway, he goes on to say about Obama, I doubt he will stay at the presidency for another 4 years. I think there will be many scandals, but that's another story. I don't think that's going to drive Obama out because Clinton never got driven out by scandals in millionaires either. But something is making me wonder because when he said this stuff about the gun, protecting himself, I know you can't buy tanks and machine guns, you can just buy regular guns. But, the one thing that is a big problem to the Illuminati is, the elite, whatever the hell is, the controllers, the ones that want to implement communism, socialism in the United States, or whatever the hell they are. The big problem is the armed population because you can only tighten the screws down so much, if you realize, you're reaming people too bad, it's like they revolt, so they're scared of that garbage, But, the one thing that really implemented gun control in this country, or started to, was, I guess it was the assassination of Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy in 1968. That gave that big impetus to the 1968 gun control laws, and also the assassination of John F. Kennedy, president, which a lot of people, I think most people realize there's a hell of a lot more behind that than just the one guy doing it. You know, it wasn't like the lone gunman thing, whatever. But I almost have, I don't want to say this is going to be for sure, but I have a little bit of suspicion considering the guys on the top. Well, let me just put it this way. If this happens, I'm not leaning towards it happening, but if this happens with Obama, I think it's going to be the conspiracy behind the scenes, the power behind the throne. How about that? That did it, because they're going to be looking to disarm the population, because that seems to be one of the platforms that they're really trying to push for, right? Disarmament of the population, right? And the only way to do it is to have a big event. Now, even in the case of outwardly conservative Ronald Reagan, he was almost killed too, remember? And guess who would have been president? George Bush, right? I mean, you can't say the guy that was trying to assassinate Ronald Reagan was trying to nick him in the heart, right? And I think there was more to it behind that then too. But it kind of, I think that really gave impetus that George Bush was actually the president during the Ronald Reagan times. 100% lock, stock, and barrel. And the visible face we saw was Ronald Reagan, and the conservatives are like, oh boy, that's great. And it's stupid too. But you know, you people that are behind Obama just realize there's the power behind the throne behind him. He's a Manchurian candidate to the max. Just like Woodrow Wilson was, just like pretty much all of them are, but probably it's more acute in the case of Obama and Woodrow Wilson. They came out of nowhere. They haven't had a long political career, so that's dangerous. And Soros is disappointed in Obama because he's not moving fast enough to centralize control of the banking system. That's one reason he's disappointed in him. So, food for thought, okay? Now, but it's like, is that, you know, what does that mean for the markets in gold and silver? Like I said, you know, where is the dollar going to go to after things are looking bad for the dollar because the government isn't keeping in with budget? Oh, and by the way, in Greece today, they passed their austerity bill, whatever the hell it was, just by a narrow vote, so they're going to get a little bit more money. And that'll keep them afloat just a little while longer. So that means, you know, the euro isn't going to tank right away like the big drama story that was looking like last week. So, you know, it's like the same deal that's going to happen with the U.S. dollar, you know. It's going to eke by a little bit longer. Actually, it's going to eke by for at least a couple more years easily. But, you know, when it does go off the side of the cliff, it may be very sudden and very unexpected. So you should have a significant amount of gold and silver. There's no doubt about it. But since I'm talking to people of various things, you know, whatever they have, I don't know who the hell it's getting this message, but number one before silver is food. You know, I'll give you another example about the Roman Empire when they're invaded and they cut off the river over there. I forgot what the hell it was, coming in the port of Ostia, and when they cut off the port and nothing was coming up the river, they had no supplies. The most wealthy in the city would give up gold for the courses of bread that they would have never eaten before. So, you know, if you don't have much gold and silver right now, if there's a calamity coming up and you want to be a very shrewd, cold-blooded business person, what you do is you buy lots and lots of food. And if there is a major, major calamity and you're betting on it, guess what? You'll be able to sell that for good amounts of silver and gold. So that's one way you can get it if you don't have it, right? So don't listen to all those other silver guys too much, because I don't know what the hell they're saying, because I don't actually listen to all of them all the time. I just know a lot of them are overly bullish, like, put all your money in silver, else the sky's falling. It ain't exactly like that. And actually, if you're probably better off putting all your money in food, because the ones that don't have the food are going to pay a lot of money for it, right? Anyway, that's all I got to say about this deal, but the Manchurian candidate is going to help us out, so hopefully, maybe I guess review my points here real quickly. The fiscal cliff is probably not going to come about. It's going to be a dud. They're going to push it off. The mandatory rules are going to be pushed off, which means if they don't downgrade the U.S. debt again, or Moody's doesn't do it for the first time, was a downgrade in the debt, that means the investors are all going to recognize the U.S. dollar is not the best place to be. It's not going to be the safe haven. They're going to go in other assets. Not all jump into gold, but that's going to be one of them. Silver, platinum, palladium, agricultural land, maybe even oil. So 2013 looks like maybe there might be some questions about the Federal Reserve and some restructuring, but I don't think it'll be to the good, considering Soros is in the background. He's pissed off that Obama, he's not centralizing the banks enough. It'd be more like a super duper Federal Reserve or something, for all I know. So anyway, and if anything crazy, I don't know, I put that out there. I don't know. I mean, I'm not really leaning towards it happening that way. But if anything crazy happens to like Obama and something happens to him by some kook or some crap in the United States, just figure this. It's the power behind the throne is disposing of him. It's not the guy that whatever they're going to be playing up in the media. And stick with your Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, and right to bear arms and all this other stuff, and the 10th Amendment, which means you have other rights even though they're not enumerated in the first 9 amendments. So that's my summary. Okay, bye.